Welcome to Dear Alice, a lifestyle approach to interior design.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dear Alice.
We're here.
Hey, guys.
How are we?
Great.
I think we're good.
It's end of the day.
Are we ready?
Towards the end of the day.
Yeah. We feeling...
Mm-hmm.
We're good. Yes, we've saved our most difficult podcast till the end of the day, so you guys are in for a real treat.
Can't wait to see how this
This
turns
one
out.
involved a history lesson, and I'm excited to dive into it. But first, I want to know from both of you guys, what is your pit and your peak of your week lately? Or let's just say the season you're in, however you want to answer that. What's going great for you and what's kind of a stumble?
A dud. Do you have stuff? I might need to
Oh,
think.
yeah, no, I'm like, it's probably kind of the same thing. It's just, parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think we can all,
Yeah.
we're all parents here. And so I would say like let's see, should I go pit or peak first?
You choose.
Okay. All right.
Let's go pit.
Let's go pit.
Then we'll land on the high.
I think it is my pit is my own, I don't know, questioning my decisions sometimes as a parent. Do you guys ever feel that?
Yes, for sure.
Every day.
Yeah.
You're
I
in your
remember-
head.
Totally. And so Nolan started 3rd grade this year. He had his teacher all good to go. We go to back to school night. It's great. He's super excited. He's sitting right by all the books that he loves. He sees the Legos. He's down. And then we realize every class has 38 students. So the day before school starts, next day, they're like, we need another teacher. They throw in another teacher. I'm like, oh, maybe I should put Nolan in that class. What if it's really great? And so like I do all these things to like move my kid to this other class and without telling him. And so we go to the first day of school and he's a mess. He like finds out that I switched classes on him. He's crying. He's just like, and as a mom, like putting like just like your little bird in a class with this other trusted adult to be like, take care of it. Like, you know, make sure. I was just an absolute wreck. I was a total mess and just like cried my face off. He was crying outside the classroom. Like it was a sprint, like it was already, back to school is already nerve wracking. And like, if you don't know your buddies are in there and you don't know, anyway, I was the dumbass that like went ahead and just like, oh, maybe this is a really creative teacher. Maybe it'll like, it'll be a good fit for his like little singing heart, you know? And I just felt so like mad at myself, I think just for putting him in there. And even like, I met for the first time. We'd seen each other, another parent. Anyway, same situation. But I totally like cried to her in the hallway.
Aww.
Guys, listeners, have you been in my seat? Anyway, it's fine. Like it all works out and it's all worked out. We're like a few weeks into school. Yes, I've gotten a couple calls from the principal's office. Totally. Yes. Anyway, but we're figuring it out. And so like, I would say that that's my pit is just like decisions that I made quickly as a parent, thinking that I was doing the right thing, when then you kind of get like backslapped and you're like, maybe that like this is my learning, right? So I would say that was a long pit, but we're better now.
Yeah.
And he's doing better, and we're using all these things as ways to learn, and like so there's good teaching opportunities. But I'm just like I feel like still a new parent.
You are.
And I'm very new. Like
Yeah.
your season, you've just let your last little bird leave the nest.
Yeah.
Which is probably, I imagine, a pit. I'm like just sitting just 3rd grade. I like was crying in the hallways.
Yeah.
You know, but also the peak is seeing them grow.
Yeah.
And seeing them like get over. So like
Adapt.
And so like even like every morning he was just like, I don't want to go to school, Mom. Like I'm not next to my friends. We're not like in the same huddle. Da 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 da. And like, so I've been having to like revise how we talk. I'm like, who are you? He's like, I'm Nolan Foxhall. I'm like, what are you? He's like, I'm a singer. What else are you? I'm a gatherer. Okay. Like those are the things, like you're just trying to buoy them up. And like, I don't know, like you get stoked and you see them like thrive through what feels hard in that moment. You see them thrive and you're like, okay, that's my peak is seeing them work through this, because they're going to be stronger for it in the end.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
maybe not a dumbass.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally.
We're working through it. And he's doing great, and we'll keep working through it. But yeah, that was a long pit and peak. What about you?
I think it's really good. There's like so many learnings there. And one of the things I learned from, this experience Sue went through, which was really emotional and really hard for you. And that was my learning from it was let your kids fight their own battles, right? Just let it play out.
That's the hardest thing
I
to
remember
do.
the principal said to Suzanne, because Suzanne called back to switch him back into the other class. And the principal said, let's just give it 2 weeks before we want to switch anything again, And I was like, what a wise old principal to be able to say, let's just let the cards lie where they are.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens, right?
See how it goes.
And so, of course, I have my little baby bird who left the nest and went up to college. And, you're like, oh, man, you're seeing like 10,000 red alarm buttons going off in your head. And I was like, nope, learn from Suze. Just be the wise principal and just let things play out. And then when the problems come, then you can solve for the problems. But don't create a problem before it even starts because you think as the wise parent, like, ooh, potentially this could go bad. And I don't want anything bad to happen to my kid. But you're like, but that's how we learn, is to have the bad things happen and then the lessons come, right? And so like trying to let her, like she had her first roommate squabble. So Jane, my daughter went up to Utah State. Yeah. And there's 5 girls that live in an apartment and they have a kitchen and everything else. And anyway, the girls, as girls do, they were talking behind Jane's back about they didn't like the way she put magnets on the fridge or stickers on the fridge. And she was like, I heard them talking bad about me. And they were just saying how dumb it was. I put these stickers on the fridge. I was like, well, I said, why don't you just say to them, hey guys, I can hear you talking. If you guys don't like the stickers, just tell me you don't like the stickers. I don't really care about the stickers. Or you can walk out while they're talking about you and be like, noted, I'm taking the stickers off, kind of thing. But I said, just like own it in the moment because girls are going to whisper about you. And like, what a gift if you can hear it, because then you can just be like, hey, let's just fix this right now. Because nobody has to feel bad about the stickers because I don't even care, or whatever it is. But I'm also in the same breath, just like trying to have her fight her battles, so that she can learn lessons, because our parents gave us the luxury of fighting our battles. But I will say for a pit, being an empty nester is no bueno. My oldest daughter's 22. She's at one college that's about a half hour away. And then the youngest daughter just left, which is just an absolute eye-opening experience, because as a mother, you're just used to having this little heartbeat in your nest where you're feeding it, you're driving home, you're like, what do you need? I can stop by the grocery store. Do you need me to pick up something from the pharmacy? You're just constantly like, how can I serve you and how can I take care of you and what do you need, or do you need supplies for the project you're working on? And all of a sudden this purpose for going home and feeding and taking care of and nurturing and fluffing the nest is just like not there. There's no beat in the basement.
I can't even imagine right now.
I can't imagine not having children in life. It would be so sad if this was my whole life so far, but I'm really grateful, as a woman to have also been able to have a career so that I can come here and, nurture the talent or, talk to people and feel alive during the day. And then at home, just, talk to Adam and figure out what our new routine is going to be, which will be a total peak once we figure it out. But we're only like 2 weeks into it so far. And I still find myself texting, Jane once a day or like once every other day just to see how her day's going. And, however we can help her. It's fun because she's at mine and Sue's alma mater. I didn't know if I'd have a child go up to Utah State, and I can just picture her there, and I can picture her in the energy of it. And so far I've asked her, like, do you feel like you're at the right school? Like, did you make the right decision? Which, for college,
a big decision.
Yeah, it's a huge decision. It's your whole identity. It's like you're going to wear those colors. You're going to the game. When people say, where'd you go to school? You're like, I'm an Aggie. You are the school you went to,
Totally are.
So I think it's fun because she said, yes, I'm definitely the right place for me, which is great. Yeah.
I didn't hear that. Okay, that's so great.
Yeah, so she's loving it. And we're like, are you having fun? Because she didn't really enjoy high school and I don't think had a lot of fun and didn't get into it. And so she's just saying yes to everything. And sometimes her answer back to us will just be a photo of her at a concert and they all have neon around their heads and wrists and everything. And I'm like, she's doing it.
Good.
She's having the fun.
So did the stickers come down?
Total peak. Yeah, she threw away the stickers.
I'm the opposite on that. I'm like so passive aggressive. I'm like, you will now be getting more stickers on your fridge until you can responsibly say something to my face.
Yeah. You know what? I have to say, I would never dare do what I counseled her to do. She went and did it. She texted me later that night. She's just like, hey, the thing with the roommates is over. Thanks, Mom. And I was like,
wow,
you're
great,
more amazing than I ever was at your age.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. But there is something funny about girls. Like if you just like own it right away, then you don't start to make up more and more stories, and the tension doesn't get bigger and these things. And you're like, how did we get here? And you're like, because there's stickers on the fridge. Like that's so stupid with girls. So I'm just kind of like, just cut it off in the beginning before it gets to become this big furry thing that you're like, how did we get here? You know?
Yeah, that's better advice.
Girls
than
are
mine, for
tricky.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll know the passive aggressive things. Fun
I
too.
know you're gonna be sending Grady a pack of stickers every week. Just be like,
Yeah.
damn the man. Oh, that's
funny.
so funny.
What's your pit and peak, Corey?
My pit, I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, I think it was on the podcast, we were talking about it, but Leo season for me is I'm just like, I'm so busy and saying yes to all these things.
Yeah.
All of that is like, this is mid-September, we're recording this right now. Now like everything is kind of just coming to a head and I feel like anxiously busy. But it's fine. It's going to pass. I know it's, I always say yes to things that I bite off more than I can chew. But then I get to look back and just be like, oh yeah, that's great. You know, it's like this time last
Checked
year
that
we were
box.
like,
Building this building.
yeah, like trying to get this to the finish line.
This was so furry.
And
This
so
time last year.
Yeah. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
just this season for me. So I'm just like trying to think like, you know what? That's just how this part of it's fall. We were talking about that yesterday. Changes happening, you know.
I think
Everyone has
everybody's
allergies or getting sick. Like,
Oh yeah, lots of sickness going around. But yeah, I do feel like everything's a buzz though. And it's not just like
it's true.
me or you. I feel like everybody has got a lot of irons in the fire.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then peak, I mean, there's a lot of them. Life is really great, but I talk about this often, but it's football season. First game was last week.
Yeah.
Graduatos.
A little lesson like on people hate Cowboys fans because it's like every year they're like, oh, we're winning the Super Bowl. And it's like, we haven't won since 95, you know, it's been forever.
95 was awesome.
Glory days. But honestly, this year, like they won 40-0. Which doesn't happen. Yeah. So I'm like,
Amazing.
man, they're as legit as I thought they were. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah.
And my dad and I talk about it all the time. That's like the
It's your
foundation
bond.
of our
That's
relationship.
amazing.
Yeah. So,
I love that.
yeah, it's great. That's my peak for sure.
I love that. Maybe, you know what? I had this real sparkly, energetic, light from within feeling about 2023 when it started. I was like, something is going on in 2023. Like there is a lot of magic to be had. And I will say it has been one of the hardest years in the history of hard for my life.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe how exponentially hard it was. And I was like, when's this magic going to come around? But I still, like when you say like they're going to win the Super Bowl, I'm like, okay, see, there's still a chance for 2023.
I'm not lying. I had that same feeling. We talked about the 2023. I was like, I
we
think
had a
there's
podcast.
I think there's something big. And the feeling that I've like been getting lately is like, hey, everything that's building right now is just going to be magical in 2024.
I hope I
2024 is
I
gonna
hope
be
I
a
can just
sparkly-
taste.
Yeah.
I just want to taste it toward the end of 2023 to be like, so that feeling wasn't for. I have this sense of magic inside my body where I just believe in something so much, and I was like, something is gonna happen with this year. You know, I don't study numerology or even whatever they call it with the stars. What are
astrology?
Astrology or anything. I just have these feelings about things. I'm like, I'm sure if somebody did a reading, they would say, sure enough, you were right about this year. But I'm like, this year is kicking me in the teeth, man.
We're right now, I feel like we're on a roller coaster just clicking up, you know what I mean? And then 2024 is going to be the fun part.
100% you said that in another podcast.
Oh, I
at the
did?
beginning of the-
Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, that's how I felt. I'm like, man, we're
we're
like,
just still clicking up. We're getting to the top. We're getting to the top. We're
getting
about
closer.
to drop. Yeah, I just want to celebrate you guys as far as like the amount of product that's been released this year and the amount of progress on that realm. I think you guys should like really let's pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
Thank
Projects
you.
that we're getting in the design center are really great projects.
Yes.
Never before.
Yes.
There's a lot of history in the making.
So good.
There's some rough knocks.
You know what?
You know what?
You're right.
But there's a lot of
There's a lot of
our
magic
pits, there's a
looking
lot
back.
of peaks
Yeah.
that have happened.
Yes.
So, and you know what? Jane is in college, and that was really hard to get over that.
That was
roller
hard.
coaster.
Oh boy, that was
So
emotional.
I'm gonna bring you Louis tonight, and he's gonna be freshly bathed.
Oh God.
And
Let you
Demi.
hug him.
We'll do
yeah.
both.
Yes,
Yeah.
these guys have
I know.
fresh, gooey babies and youngsters
Oh.
that I can drift
Change
off
their
of.
diaper. I'm just kidding.
Yes, I totally would. I know.
They're
I
really
need to.
chubby and
I need to build a compound with these babies so that, or I don't know, maybe I'll get pregnant.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's been older people have babies than me, right?
It's a hell of a peak.
Yeah, totally. Okay, you guys, we this podcast started with a
Yes.
great question in which Suzanne Hall over here to my left decided she would write a finals paper on for us so that we could then record a podcast for you. So
I know.
we're super excited.
I don't know if it's an A final.
We're
C's get
no,
degrees.
There's yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have fun.
You guys are
recording
going to
this
be
anyway.
on this journey with us because we are learning with you at the same time. And this all came because we have this great question from Monica DeHera. And she asked, I love the timeless yet trendy look of checkered or diamond floors. I'm planning on installing in my new home. However, I'm stuck on scale. Is there a rule for pairing tile size with square footage of a room? Would love for this to be addressed on an episode. Thank you, Monica DeHera.
Okay.
So, Monica, we started talking about this and we were like, you know what? This is a massive thing we should talk about. But also, like, checkerboard is everywhere right now. We're seeing it in fashion. We just saw this really great
With Pharrell.
Pharrell just did this amazing
Launch with Louis
creative
Vuitton.
direction. He's doing the Louis Vuitton line, and he did digitized camouflage in checkerboard, which was amazing. We're seeing it obviously on the Vans, right?
We've seen
Yep.
it on
We're
Vans for
seeing
like
it.
decades, and
Yeah.
so
Lots of the checkerboard rugs available. We have our own version of that you can customize the color and the size, which is called the chess
chess
rug.
rug.
Yeah. We've obviously seen it on game boards.
yeah, we've been seeing it
Forever.
Yeah, forever. Like it goes back to like Egyptian, Roman. You know, it's been around forever. As this kind of this contrast, this duality. Clay, it's a tile, and they put out a really cool article, kind of like going through the history of checkerboard and just that this duality of this, like the light and the dark, you know, the good and the evil, like creates this kind of balance, you know, that humans, we've always like loved pattern and repetition. And this has been one of the longest lasting patterns that has been around since the history of man. You know, like it was in Solomon's temple. There's a lot of imagery and symbolism to the checkerboard floor for Solomon's temple. You see it in clay, you see it in Egyptian like hieroglyphs, you see them everywhere. And if you like really start to deep dive, you see this resurgence, you know, in different renaissances and things happen with the checkerboard floor. And we're in that right now where we've seen it for, I feel like even like, not even this year, it's been going on for like the last, even dare I say 5 years.
Yeah.
We've seen like a popularity of the checkerboard come to the surface and we love it. And I feel like for a long time, we've always loved the idea of like creating patterns with like checkerboard's awesome. It's usually just like two squares butted up to each other. And I think we should define too checkerboard versus, you said you might do checkerboard or diagonal. Just so you guys are aware of like the different terminologies. Checkerboard is when it is laid straight. We have some really good images here when it's laid straight and parallel with the wall. So it's an actual checkerboard, just like when you're playing checkers or chess, it's straight on, you know. Then if you want a harlequin pattern, and it's funny because I always thought harlequin was like an elongated diamond. It is not. Anything on the diagonal is considered harlequin. And that is what you see in a lot of like palaces and a lot of French design and history, like shows harlequin most often. And that's on the diagonal, which is really pretty because it's a space expanding trick too.
It is.
Where it kind of like pulls the corners of all these and just stretches a space, which is really great. So yeah.
I was just gonna say, to me, it feels a little bit more elegant too when you do that.
I think
It's
so.
not like,
A little more fancy, a little more European.
a little
Yeah.
less irreverent.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And I feel like
Chesterfield
a
does.
good tile setter is going to cut that square tile from point to point, and that you're going to come in with these points, these sort of flags, you know what I mean, from the edges on the borders, and setting that within. And there is a real beauty. So I so appreciate the question that Monica's asking about getting the scale right so that you can do a really beautiful border. Because recently we've seen a house installation with a large checkerboard floor. We didn't design the home, but a lot of people have been admiring it. And we were like, oh my gosh, there's no border. This thing just runs
No border
into
and
the
they're way too
wall.
big.
And you're talking about like a 24 by 24, 18 by 18 checkerboard floor that just bleeds out without the bordering. And the bordering is what really sets these apart. It's almost like rugs within the rooms.
Containment, and it's organized.
Yes,
and,
and you get to have those beautiful
borders.
pennants that come in from the edges if you're laying it on the harlequin, or even within the checkerboard that you're putting a beautiful border within it, which is, I think, this really, really high style for design. And it's just like a really beautiful vibrato to celebrate the pattern within it. So bleeding out the pattern to the edge feels very amateur. And I would say if you are going to go for a pattern, which is as striking as checkerboard or harlequin pattern, you've got to figure out, you got to spend
Isn't it wrong? Is it
more
harlequin
time.
or harlequin?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Anyway,
You've got to spend even more time figuring out your border than you do your scale.
it's so true.
Yeah, because that's the hard part to me, is getting the size of the checkerboard pattern within the room right. So I think Monica asked a great question. Nobody's talked about getting the border right, but I think we should include that in this discussion.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the containment. It's kind of like having a door with no casing.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
yes.
Just like even
a
like
fireplace with no mantle.
fireplace with no mantle. It contains it, and it just like it does give like a really nice edge for it to land on. I think it makes it feel finished.
Yeah.
I think it is totally amateur hour when you don't have a border.
Yes.
I hate it, and I do hate it when you see too big of a tile in a space.
Yes.
Particularly like when you see a hallway and you have two like 18 by 18s, and that's all you see is just two rows. That makes me so mad. If you guys want to get me going, like throw a wood tile, like in a square tile. Anyway, there's nothing that like gets me fired up than that. But as we look at like and as we do this, and we're working in AutoCAD, so we have the luxury of like really understanding the space. So we have like the actual floor plan, and then we can kind of start to offset that space. Be it like a powder room, we know if it's not a big powder room, we're going to start offsetting that by like 6 inches, and then maybe a 2-inch, but kind of like working in even numbers. And I will say this, that when you're trying to like work out your room and figure out what is the right scale for this room, there are certain tiles that are only available, right? It's not like we can just say like, I want a 3.5 by 3.5, and that's what I will do. And it will be great because you're not going to find that. You're working with like 12 by 12 is your most standard tile size. Then you hop up to 18 by 18. Then you go 24 by 24. Then you're, so on and so forth. But you are limited to the sizes available. A lot of times what we'll do, just because like a 12 by 12 doesn't really like, get us Jones for anything.
It feels so standard.
Our eyeballs know it's 12 by 12.
Yeah, we know we're looking at a foot, and it's not that interesting. So we're always like, what cuts can we make to standard size tiles to create the patterns that we want so that it feels custom, because we're doing custom dream homes. And so we start with what's available, and then we start cutting things in half from that to make the patterns in AutoCAD and play with colors as well to create a beautiful plaid entryway or, another series of designs. Sorry, take it back, Sue.
No, just like to that, you have this like size, and if it's a 12 by 12, that like they're going to cut it twice to get 4 6 by 6s. And so that's when you start to understand what is right for the room. And I think we've talked about this before, but like if it's a large room, then it can like swallow a larger tile. If you put too small of a tile in a massive room, it might get a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
But on the adverse, if you have a small room and you put too big of a tile, obviously I've spoken my piece on that. I hate it.
You're not going to get a repeat of that pattern enough.
Kind of want a small space, in my opinion. Like I want a small dance happening around me, so I don't know what the scale of the room is.
Yeah.
We liken this to when you're sitting in a gas station bathroom and you can count the 12 by 12 tiles sitting in front of you, and you're like, oh, this is 3 by 5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna 3 by 5.
Nothing feels more basic.
You saved my house from me making that mistake, by the way.
What did you do instead?
I just got this really small, like black and white pattern.
Mosaic.
Yeah.
Mosaic
your powder.
But what it feels like to me is like the floor was already done. It's like it goes into another room, and then they just separated it with a wall. You know what I mean? Like it's like actually should be bigger than it's laid. And you just like cut it off.
There's probably no reason why you should have a large scale check in a powder bath. Too small of space. Also, you shouldn't have it in your pantry if it's large scale. You're going to want to go with the smaller
cabinetry.
Yes. Talk about the cabinetry.
Okay.
Just let loose.
Okay. And like this said, like I'm sure you guys have seen images like this where you're looking at.
Let's just say it's a laundry room or a pantry.
It's a laundry room or a pantry. So you have cabinetry. You have like an actual built-in that's coming from the wall into this space. We know that like a good house has the tile running underneath the cabinetry. So I want to take that into consideration when I'm laying my tile. So even when we're doing say a pantry, we offset like the depth of that. I know I'm going to come out 24 inches for that cabinet base. And then from that point, that's when I'm going to start my border.
Yeah.
You know, that's like if it's 4 inches, 6 inches, whatever that is. And that's when I'm going to start chasing around, you know, the applicable corners and whatnot. And then I'm going to figure out what is my tile inside, what makes sense given what's available. You know, knowing that 12 by 12, I can get that at Dow Tile and I can cut that into a 6 by 6. And if it's a smaller pantry, that's probably what I would do. If it's a bigger space, then you can start to entertain if you are 12 by 12. I will say going 12 by 12 on a Harlequin is better than a check. I think a check is more predictable, you know, in the 12 by 12 that we just said was basic.
Yeah.
12 by 12 in a diamond is better than 12 by 12 in a check, right?
Yep.
And so I think that that's when you start to figure out your scale. And what I would say, if you don't have AutoCAD, you're not working with a designer, use graph paper, measure it out, do the math, go to a flooring place and get the sizes that are available and start even like buy like 10 of them and start laying them out and saying, oh gosh, they were right. Especially with like when I consider the depth of my cabinet, I only had 3 tiles. I should make this smaller because it becomes more mysterious. The smaller you can go, the more magical and mysterious and custom this tile pattern is going to feel than being basic. And do not forget the border.
We Googled this, or I Googled this, but it said like on Google, when you type it in, it's like a bigger tile makes a room feel bigger. And I actually disagree with that. If it's a small
That's
room.
true for art. It's true for rugs. It is a true scale statement to make. But I think in tile, I have to disagree because you're gonna look like
Google.
It's gonna look like amateur hour. You know what I mean? You're not gonna get the repeat in the room of the pattern you're trying to make because your room is too small, your tile's too big, and you don't get the payoff of the pattern. And also, Google didn't even remember that it needed a border.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're looking like amateur hour.
They are looking like amateur hour. So if we really want it to make it look like all of you guys hired a designer, which is probably why you're listening to this podcast, then yeah, you're going to want to really do the math. And I think graph paper is perfect because you're just working in square feet. Each square is a square foot. And you can measure your powder bath, get that drawn down, and figure out the scale of that checkerboard should be. And then if it's a 6 by 6, you know you're just going to buy 12 by 12s and get them cut in half both directions. And then you kind of have this custom version of a tile that nobody else can get. And then you're like, oh yeah, well, it was custom because you figured out on graph paper and you figured out that darn border, and you're going to study borders and you're going to figure out what is right for what style you want and what's going to look good in your scale of space. Here's what people generally do, or what we've seen. We're going to do a custom entryway for the most part. So we're going to do something tile that you can come in with wet feet. We're usually using 2 or 3 kinds of marbles in that to come up with a great pattern. We've done marble plaids. We've done, beautiful, these triangle sort of prism details with 3 marbles. We're always going to find a really interesting way using our AutoCAD skills, using tiles that exist already in the marketplace, and then just cutting them in half one direction or the other to come up with a custom looking design, and you get so much credit for it. So you're going to do it in the entry. We're going to do it in the powder bath, most likely, maybe in the primary bath as well. In the pantry, in the laundry room. Yeah. And you're going to have a good time with it. And you're going to just want to get the scale, small scale and small spaces. So your powder bath is probably small. Your laundry room could be big or small.
Yeah, depending on the laundry room. Yeah.
Your primary bath, same thing. Yeah, your pantry is probably small. So you're going to mostly be playing around with something under like a 12 by 12 and less is my guess to be able to come up with some cute pattern. Yeah. And don't forget the border.
Yeah. And on, like we talked about, like throwing it on the diagonal versus checkerboard. I do think like you said, I feel like the diagonal is the most like classic, elegant, formal, the thing that we're like used to seeing in like palaces and whatnot. The Louvre and whatever. But there's something fashionable about the check.
And that's what's happening right now.
Really fun. But even
the check is what's hot right now. Yeah.
But even it's fun when you look at like some of these spaces. There's like very historic European spaces.
Yeah, that's a great
in this
one.
picture that have it on the check. All these are very historic looking, and they have it on the check, which it was fun to see that, because you only think of it being like this like modern thing that we're going to throw it straight, but I think it's just how you treat what's around it too, to kind of justify what is the feeling that you want that flooring to give.
Totally.
And it also depends, I think, on the furniture you're putting on in there. We're doing a formal dining room up in Portland, and like they're really fashionable. They're really luxury, and you'd expect that flooring to be on the diagonal. We're gonna throw it on the check. We're gonna throw it straight, because I'm like, it should feel a little bit more fashionable.
Yeah,
we'll add curves in other spots,
Love
but
that.
I think it'll be funkier, but still in a traditional marbles, whatnot. But anyway, so like stretch yourself. Like think like, am I a check? Am I on the angle?
I feel like if we were all to say at this table, this will be fun. If you're a check or if you're on the diagonal, I feel like all three of us would say we're the check.
Check for sure.
We're going to be justified with the wall.
Yeah.
We're not going to throw it on the diagonal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
I am for sure.
I don't consider myself to be formal or fancy enough. And I honestly hate it when people take their shoes off at my house. I'm like, oh no, please just stay comfortable. I don't want anybody to feel like
that's, if you're more comfortable
I'm
with your shoes
overly
off, please
fancy.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I just don't ever want to be so overly, I mean, I have a tendency to get there anyway through accessory and styling, that I don't ever want people to feel like it's over the top, even though sometimes I'm like, I know it's a lot. I couldn't help myself. I just love beautiful things. You know what I mean? So I feel like I got to take it down about 1,000 and do a check floor instead of the Harlequin, because otherwise it would just be like too much. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I like the check better. What do you like, Corey?
Oh yeah, check for sure. Like I grew up wearing Vans, and I've always just loved that. I don't know. I feel like it's a very the skateboarding community kind of like adapted that, and bands and stuff. So yeah, I've always
like music, pop culture. The 80s used a lot. Like anyway, just you see this resurgence in like every couple decades. And
I would say really honestly, right now though, it's like one of my favorite resurgences of the check pattern. It's just it's being used in different ways. I mean, like the chest rug, when you and McKinley were like, oh, we're gonna put just like an awesome like orange square in this. I was like, man, that's just cool. Just kind of switching it up a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited that it's here. And I mean, I feel like it has been for, this isn't like breaking news or anything, but yeah, it's rad.
I think a little bit, just the rhythm, I think is like our brains like it. I think there's a reason why we've been creating this like pattern for like thousands of years. Right. Yeah. And so I think every room could use like a little bit of like of that geometry. I think it keeps things organized. It keeps things straight. And that graphic is really good paired with florals. It's paired, with anything, any large organic movement, which we're also big advocates for, having a little check or a little something in there. That's why we love the Greek key. We love these like straights and these things to kind of like counterbalance and kind of masculine, make it a little bit more masculine. Yeah. So it doesn't get too formal and swoopy and too much. Harlequin or Harlequin? Did we find out?
Harlequin.
Oh, Quinn. Okay.
Harlequin.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, tomato.
Vocabulary lesson for you all. Aren't you glad you listened to Dear Alice today?
We know.
It's Harlequin. Yeah.
We all learned something.
Yeah, we do.
But there are so many cool patterns and things you can make. And there are a lot of really rad tiles that are already like made in different mosaics with color. And that's the fun thing about doing checkerboard, is you can do it with like any colored pattern or any colored tile. Yeah. You could have red, you could have green, you can like, even this one I thought, I'm like, that was rad that they had like this really veined one with the travertine. I'm like, we don't see that very often, but you could do it. Yeah. The world is your oyster.
It is.
Check yourself.
Don't forget your border.
Don't forget your border, please.
Yes. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for the great question, Monica. You guys, I don't know if we've told you enough about the home furnishing design service, but Sue, tell them about it.
Okay, the home furnishing design service is a service that was created when in the design center where we're working on full homes, we just can't get to enough people. And so we created this program to help everybody. I feel like everybody is, in the need to like refresh a space. And so we have a program where we have designers on staff that are ready to help anybody that like needs to furnish a home, that doesn't want to do it by themselves and is like worried about making mistakes. I think that's the biggest sounding board, is just to have, someone to tell you what would fit best in the space, and like trusted too. Like we have hundreds of vendors that they're shopping from, and they're just awesome. So you can come in call if you're out of state, and they'll look at your room, they'll work it out with you and get all the furniture you need. What am I missing?
Yeah. They're designers. They work in AutoCAD. We're going to put your plans in. We're going to make sure and scale that sectional so you're getting the right size. The space planning is going to be really thoughtful. The fabrics, if you have pets or kids or whatever, so that what your decisions you're making can be long lasting and that you won't have to live with regret, which I think if you're purchasing furniture, it's expensive today. So if you're going to make a big decision like that, you want to know that you've made the best space plan for your house. You've chosen the right fabrics, and you've worked with a professional with a design degree. And so these guys are just a great team. They're busy, but they're so wonderful, and they're on standby to help you. So that's our home furnishing design team. If you guys want help, definitely get on the website and fill out the questionnaire so that we can get in touch with you back again. Yeah. If you guys have questions for us on the podcast, feel free to send those to Dear Alice at AliceLaneHome.com. Again, that's Dear Alice at AliceLaneHome.com. We will catch you guys next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like our show, please leave a 5-star rating.